Welcome back to the Advent Calendar House. A salute to all holiday specials, but mostly the Christmas ones. It is once again Scrooge Sunday, and today we're on a journey through the uncanny valley back to 2009 to rewatch Disney's motion capture nightmare version of A Christmas Carol. I am a touch cross-eyed and mysteriously shrinking for no reason Mike Westfall. And joining me, chasing me through the streets of the future in a phantom hearse, please welcome Matt Weiland. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike. How are you? And let me be the first to wish you a happy back to the coast of Christmas Future Day.
Thank you. That'll be coming up a few times here because A Christmas Carol is directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Oh, you don't say.
He makes it kind of perfectly clear a few times in here, but
yep.
But thank you for coming on. I know you're excited to talk about this one. I believe your exact wording was you were ready and available to talk about the Disney movie that opens on a corpse's face.
I have opinions about this movie, Mike. I don't mind telling you, but I immediately have to retract that statement because as I'm sure that you noticed in your rewatch, it doesn't open on a dead man's face. It opens on a joyous celebratory Christmas snowfall with, the book, as it always does. And then the book opens and then we're on a dead face.
Yeah, we get the classic Disney trope from everything beginning with Snow White. And I think the most recent one besides this is Winnie the Pooh. And Enchanted did it right before this.
Yep. Yeah, they love their books. They love their books at Disney, like when they used to film the actual real life hardcover and then transition to animation. And when they did the recent Jungle Book and stuff like that, they love it. They love books, but they just don't want us to read them. They want us to watch their nightmarish adaptions of them.
So did you see this in the theater too?
Okay. No,
really?
I didn't. Okay. Yeah. And gosh, man, is there, if I had a Christmas wish, to paraphrase Steve Martin, it would be to see this movie as I saw the Polar Express originally, which was on a real IMAX theater. It was like a daytime matinee, so there were kids, packed to the rafters in this. Literally, it was like one of those stadium seating IMAX, real deal IMAX, not like the fake ones they have at the mall. And Polar Express has all those scenes where it's like, a roller coaster ride. It feels, you're going down the hill and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that really kind of enhanced my experience for the Polar Express because I came out of that thing like, wow, that was cool. I really enjoyed that. It was in 3D. It was like a ride. And then you watch the Polar Express on regular TV and you're like, man, this was not the experience I had in the theater.
My wife's copy of the Polar Express on DVD is quote unquote full screen because it's that old of a movie. So before they had the 16:9 TVs that everybody has now, it was like 4:3 pan and scan DVD.
Yep.
And just blurry as heck. So
well, it's funny that you mentioned that because my copy of the Polar Express is unopened. Because Kate, my wife, knew that I enjoyed the movie the first time, and then now it's on like ABC Family, and every time I watch it, I get a little bit more and more creeped out. So all of that is to say, I saw the Polar Express in the theater. I wish I had seen this movie in the theater because there are some scenes that we're going to talk about where I would give anything to hear what happened to those kids that were assuredly at these matinees of these movies in the dark, huge screen, loud sound. I'm thinking they're still in therapy.
Probably. I remember seeing it in the theater. We had the 3D glasses or anything. This was before any of my kids were born. This came out in 2009. This was just months after we got married. I don't remember any kids' reactions. I feel like that would have stayed with me. But no, I just remember that a lot of these scenes, needed to be seen in the theater in 3D. They were made to be seen that way. But
yep, and huge chunks of the movie that we'll talk about where we kind of go on like a roller coaster tangent for no real reason, just to kind of show off, as Fozzie would say, cheap 3D tricks.
Yeah. So Disney's A Christmas Carol, as it's titled on screen and on Disney Plus, Premiered in London on November 3rd, 2009, and in the U.S. on November 6th. I believe we saw it on Thanksgiving weekend, but I don't remember. It made what sounds like a lot of money, $325 million worldwide, but it's considered one of the worst bombs of all time because of how expensive it was to make.
Yep. And there are certain things where I'm kind of thankful it wasn't more popular. I'm thinking of some certain merchandise that might have been made if this movie had been a little bit more popular. Maybe like a stuffed psychotic Ghost of Christmas Past candle, maybe that we were spared from because this movie wasn't more popular. But he definitely spent it all. It's all up on the screen somewhere.
And ended up losing the studio as much as $100 million and forced Mark Zorati to resign as head of Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures Group. He's currently CEO of Cinemark, so he'll be okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. Was he in charge of Mars Needs Moms as well, or was that somebody else?
I think that was after him. I don't remember. I think Mars Needs Moms was the last straw.
Yep.
That eventually closed that whole that motion capture thing down.
Yes. The final nail in the coffin, as it were.
Yeah.
And speaking of coffins.
Yeah, let's get into it. All right. So we do open with that snowy scene, but then we open the book and the initially cheerful Christmas music starts to take a turn toward the sinister as we zoom in on the first sentence. Marley was dead to begin with. And boom! There's the dead face with coins covering his eyes.
Yes, of course, Jacob Marley being of ancient Greek descent and needing those to cross the river Styx, as we know.
Well, you know the real reason why they did that?
No, what's that?
Keep their eyes shut.
Really?
Yeah. Because as rigor mortis sets in, the eyes tend to kind of spring open as the muscles relax. So you don't want that at awake. Wow. You know what? I'm kind of shocked that Zemeckis didn't show that happening as soon as Scrooge takes the coins off of his eyes. So am I. Now that you mention it,
another wasted opportunity to corrupt children.
That would have been the epitome of the cheap 3D trick.
You have no idea. Can we go back to the book for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Because are you aware of the original title of this book as it appeared in Dickensian London?
Yes, but it's escaping me because it's a long one.
Well, it's one that I think should have been on this because Zemeckis really leans into it, and it is the original title was A Christmas Carol, being a ghost story of Christmas.
Yes,
by Charles Dickens, and I really think that should have been on the cover. Because it is something that he seems to have taken to heart.
Oh, absolutely. He leans into the ghost story aspect of this, which I like.
I think I do too. And when Johnny Mathis is singing about, scary ghost stories of Christmases long, long ago, like this is it, guys. This is what we're talking about.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So,
what I kind of wish they leaned into more was, as we transition from the book into the CGI style, the image of Marley, his dead corpse, is first shown as an ink drawing as you open the book.
Yep.
That kind of fades into the CGI style. And here's where I'm saying the style enters into it. Even with that, when we transition into that, there's still a hint of the inked outlines, especially in anything made in wood in here, floor signage. But part of me wishes they would have met at some middle ground between that ink drawing style and the Polar Express style that they ended up sticking with. But
yeah, it would have been like when they did Spider-Verse, and you could see like kind of the comic dots every now and then. That was really great how they did that. I agree with you. This is, you and I should be running the Disney mocap studio.
Here we go.
We'll open it back up and throw some money on the furnace.
Perfect. What I will say, it's only been 5 years between this and the Polar Express. The Polar Express, they couldn't quite get it. Like it had that uncanny valley feeling to it. It's a little better here. It's enough of an improvement that not everything looks completely creepy. It's still a bit off, but it's a lot better than 5 years before.
Yeah. And let's just put it out there right now. Nothing in this thing is even remotely as annoying as the kid with the glasses from the Polar Express.
Oh, absolutely not. Not even close. Try as Jim Carrey might.
Yes, and he did. And God, does he try?
He sure does. So let's talk about Jim Carrey and Scrooge.
Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not a penny richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
As far as portrayals of Scrooge go, is he like top tier, middle tier, bottom tier for you?
I like what he does. I like what he does as Scrooge. I didn't need to see him as the ghosts. I don't think. I definitely didn't need to see the Ace Ventura Christmas Past candle. But I like what he does with his body and his mannerisms when he's Scrooge. In this opening scene, he's rubbing his fingers together, he's licking his lips. The money is the only thing that matters to him. He's very hobbled and stuff like that. I like that a lot. When we're getting into some of the other stuff that he does, as the ghosts later on, not really for me. He delivers the lines well. I think it's a good performance. But I think he should have stuck on Scrooge. And I want to ask you a question about this movie.
Okay.
And see if you have maybe the same Mandela effect that I do, because I remember when this movie was first announced, it was very exciting. It had a top tier cast list, some of which I think is still here, like with, folks we'll get to, like Gary Oldman and others. Let me ask you this. Do you remember reading about who the Ghost of Christmas Future was going to be?
No, I don't.
Okay, because and this could be like something that my mind like completely made up, because when I first read like the press release that announced this movie, I thought I remembered that Alan Rickman was going to be playing the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Oh my goodness.
And I was, number one, really excited. And then I was instantly puzzled, because was it going to be like Mickey's Christmas Carol, where you have a talking Ghost of Christmas Future, because that would be incredible.
Yeah.
So I spent the better part of half an hour Googling around today to see if Alan Rickman had indeed been originally attached to this movie, and all I got was wish lists of the great Scrooges who never played the role, which is also true.
Yeah.
But if Jim Carrey mocapped the Ghost of Christmas Future in this, then he did a great job also. But
he did.
We can't really tell. Okay, so good on him. Good on him. He pointed well, and he appeared menacing. Good job.
Yeah. Well, Robert Zemeckis wanted to do the same thing he did where Tom Hanks is all the adult figures in here. Jim Carrey is all three ghosts in addition to being Scrooge.
Yep. Okay, I was just curious if anyone else had that memory that I did, or if it was something that I concocted out of, I guess, just pure desire.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been something. I don't know if that would have been a waste or not, just because you get Alan Rickman for Alan Rickman voice.
Yeah. Like we could have had Alan Rickman do, like, let's cast Alan Rickman in this movie that appears now. He could have been a great Cratchit. He could have, he could have been a great Marley, I think. But I think Ghost of Christmas Future would have been a serious win.
Oh, absolutely. But as far as Jim Carrey goes and Scrooges throughout history, he's middle of the road for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
My favorite's Michael Caine, and not because he's surrounded by Muppets, but because he plays Scrooge completely straight despite being surrounded by Muppets. And that makes it all the better.
Yep.
People swear by Alastair Sim being the undisputed greatest portrayal of Scrooge, but I like Michael Caine better.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that Michael Caine is probably the best Scrooge. I like what Bill Murray did in Scrooge. I'm a huge Scrooge fan. Kind of a completely different take on it. As far as like the straight Scrooge, though, I'm with you. I'm with you on Michael Caine all the way.
Jim Carrey's not threatening for a top tier spot, but he's not bad by any means.
Yeah, I like how he kind of plays, scared, chastised Scrooge, and I like some of the stuff that he does after his, after the redemption and stuff like that. it's when it gets to kind of the heartfelt, and maybe it's a mixture of the mocap and it being Jim Carrey, but when it gets to some of the parts where you compare Scrooge looking at Tiny Tim or Tiny Tim's empty chair to a ghost, a dead-eyed Jim Carrey mocap, it really can't compare, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So because this is a straight up version of A Christmas Carol, I'm very likely not going to run into most of this cast again on this podcast. I am going to do something a little bit different. For each of the top billed actors on this, I'm going to point out where in that actor's filmography this movie sits. So for Jim Carrey, this was a year after Horton Hears a Who and Yes Man, and 2 years before Mr. Popper's Penguins. So that's where we're sitting. Oh, and also that episode of The Office where he's that guy from the Finger Lakes.
I completely forgot about that.
So did I until I saw it. And he doesn't have a name. He's credited as Finger Lakes Guy, which makes that joke even funnier.
Oh, we're calling this a valley point for Mr. Carey.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. What's he done since? Has he had any kind of a renaissance? He's Biden now, obviously on SNL. I don't think anything particularly special.
Nothing's really coming to mind. What's your favorite Jim Carrey thing?
My favorite Jim Carrey thing is probably, I think it's probably, the best movie starring Jim Carrey, I think, is probably Eternal Sunshine. But the best comedic Jim Carrey performance is probably Liar Liar or Dumb and Dumber, I would say. I
would probably go, those are two good ones. I lean toward Liar Liar myself. Most of my friends also kind of go the Dumb and Dumber route. I like The Truman Show a lot. One underrated thing that's not a great movie, but for some reason I really, really liked when I saw it was The Majestic. It was like his first kind of serious role.
Yep.
I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know how much it holds up, but I remember really enjoying it.
Yeah. No, but we are definitely on kind of the other side of the mountain when we're talking about Jim Carrey in this particular movie.
Oh yeah. And for now, we're still at Scrooge looking over the dead Jacob Marley's body. His hands are shaking as he has to pay the Undertaker, which I really like, just to really show how much he hates parting with his money.
Yep.
So it looks almost like a symptom of withdrawal.
Yep. And he chastises the boy who's just trying to put a lid on a coffin.
Right.
And he takes back exactly what he paid. And he takes it right from Marley himself.
Yep.
Both denying him a trip to the underworld and probably resulting in his eyes being open within a few short minutes.
And go back to the coins. That's what the cloth tied around the head's for, too. You see a lot of it as Marley is a ghost. That's to keep its mouth shut.
We'll get to that, too.
We sure will. But for now, Scrooge leaves. We get the opening credits in a flyover of 1840s London, which is one of these 3D scenes. We're going to see a lot of these flyover scenes of look what we can do. Yep.
Fly over, fly through, fly under, and it's the same, that same kind of thing I was talking about with the Polar Express where you said it. It's literally just kind of showing off and spending a lot of Disney's money in the process.
It's soaring over A Christmas Carol.
I love that.
And then this flyover stops at Scrooge and Marley's office 7 Christmas Eves later, and I really like the effect of the sign aging before our eyes as we flash forward 7 years.
I do too, and I've watched this. I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times, and each time I'm faked out because I'm like, "Oh, we're going to get right into it when he goes into the office." But it's not the case. They do a nice job of giving you a little bit of time transition there.
Yeah.
And also you know what? I'll get to it. I'll get to it later. There's another thing that every single time is going to happen, and it's actually they go a different direction. But we'll talk about it later. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but inside we meet Bob Cratchit, a short, balding, and quiet gentleman played by Gary Oldman.
It's only once a year, sir.
What excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December?
Yes, an almost unrecognizable Gary Oldman.
This is one case where the motion capture kind of does it right, where you can see hints of Gary Oldman in there, but you wouldn't be able to make a completely different character like this.
There are certain people who are going to show up and it's like, oh, okay, so you didn't even need to wear, those ping pong balls and stuff. I bet you just kind of showed up and did your part. But no, they did a good job. They did a good job with Gary Oldman, making him look both kind of haggard, but also, the kindness is there too.
Oh yeah.
And he's kind of he's a very chastised Cratchit. I don't think he really speaks until later on when he leaves the office. If maybe he'll say goodbye to Fred at some point, but he's very much in the background.
Oh yeah, he doesn't speak at all at first. He's just trying to warm his hands by the small flame of his candle. Consider swiping the piece of coal to light a fire, but thinking better of it. In Gary Oldman's filmography, this is a year after The Dark Knight and a year before The Book of Eli.
Yes.
With Harry Potter's 2 years on either side.
He is maybe kind of the guy most crushing it in this cast at this moment.
Oh yeah. And even more so a little later, but
Yep.
But first, Scrooge's nephew Fred enters, and it's Colin Firth.
Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Humbug.
Christmas humbug? Uncle, you don't mean that.
Literally just Colin Firth.
It's just much more easily recognizable.
maybe they took a few years off and stuff like that, but this is Colin Firth, who had yet to win an Oscar at this point.
Yeah, this is the year before The King's Speech.
Okay.
And a year after Mamma Mia. I forgot he was in Mamma Mia.
So I'm calling this another uptick. Everyone's on the rise except for our star.
Yeah. Colin Firth, though, he kind of looks like a version of himself in a PlayStation 3 game.
Yeah, he's like the president in Call of Duty 6,
yes.
Well, maybe he's the prime minister, I should say, not the president.
Okay.
But and maybe a little too old for this role. Do you think? Should Fred be a little younger? Do we think?
I thought so. I don't know. Like they could have. I'm used to my Freds being kind of young, like newlywed.
Yeah, like there was an actor that we're going to talk about coming up very, very soon, who, when you're watching the opening credits, I had completely kind of blocked his presence in this movie out completely, but I immediately assumed that he was going to be Fred when I saw his name up on the screen, and boy, was I in for a surprise.
Well, next comes our two portly gentlemen.
Yes, and now we need to address the elephant in the room, or should we say the Elwesfant in the room? Because one of the charitable gentlemen is none other than our dear sweet Wesley. It's Cary Elwes.
I didn't recognize him until he started speaking, and then I took a closer look, and there are his eyes like the sea after a storm.
Yep, and I'm not going to lie, like I was watching this movie while some other things were going on.
Mm-hmm.
As you do in the age of COVID. Yeah. And I heard his voice first, and I looked up, and all of a sudden I'm looking at Cary Elwes' voice coming out of basically the end credit character of Ben Stiller from Dodgeball.
Yeah, you're not wrong. This is indeed a portly gentleman.
Yes, but charitable.
We
don't hold his portliness against him.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. They're just trying to do the right thing by the needy of London.
Sure. Now, Cary Elwes.
Yes.
Don't look, but on IMDb, for every actor, they have a list of 4 things they're known for. What do you think is first for Cary Elwes?
Well, Princess Bride.
Nope, it's Saw.
Okay.
Then the second is Robin Hood Men in Tights. Then the Princess Bride. So algorithm's broken.
And then this?
No, then it was what was it? Is it Kiss the Girls? Is that the one he's in?
This is not on his reel. No. You know what? One thing that I had a hilarious time imagining was the premiere of this movie, which, as you said, was in London. Everyone's there. Everyone's watching the movie. And, Gary Oldman sees himself. He's like, oh, that's kind of funny. That's cool. Jim Carrey's there. He sees himself as crotchety old Scrooge. Colin Firth basically sees himself up on the screen. And then it would have been hilarious to me if Bob Zemeckis had not told Cary Elwes how his character was going to look. And he just kind of shows up and he's just like, wait, What's going on here?
Well, Dickens does describe them as portly gentlemen. Those are his words, not mine.
Oh.
But
okay.
that would be funny, though.
So you're not fat shaming the portly gentleman. That's just their names.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
For Cary Elwes, this comes a year after he was in a movie called The Alphabet Killer, and a year before saw the final chapter. No, it wasn't.
Spoiler.
Here's a fun fact about Cary Elwes. He's an ancestor. And wrong. He's a descendant of 18th century politician John Elwes, a renowned miser whom Dickens had suggested was an inspiration for the character Scrooge.
Stop.
I'm not even joking.
Oh, that's a great bit of trivia.
From
I love
his
hearing
mouth.
That. I wish we could see Cary Elwes more. He was,
I know.
He was dreadfully miscast in Saw. I've heard of people who went to see Saw in the theater. It's supposed to be this big climactic moment of the movie. I won't spoil this 20-year-old movie for anyone to say what happens to him, but it's supposed to be this big dramatic scene, and people were bursting out laughing at how, I guess, terribly he acted it. But everything I've ever seen him in, I've always been a great fan of Cary Elwes.
Oh, he's great, and I've seen him do kind of a talk on The Princess Bride, like when the 25th anniversary. We went to a thing where he just did a Q&A session, and his audiobook version of his memoir of that movie is just the greatest thing.
Yeah.
He's just got good stories, and he's a genuinely good dude.
Come back, Cary. Come back to us.
Yeah, I'm glad that the family name, couple hundred years after that guy who inspired the actual Scrooge, family name's in good hands.
Well, now hearing that little tidbit of trivia, I kind of want to see him as Scrooge eventually.
That would be good. I mean, he can be a good villain.
Yes, he can. He has to have done some stuff where he was like shady operator guy. Right?
The last season of Stranger Things, he was like the mayor or something. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Cary. This is your agent talking here. We have to get you attached to a Scrooge.
Make it so.
Yep.
The other portly gentleman does not speak at all, but his motion capture acting is done by Julian Holloway. He's known for his role as the animated version of Siegfried Fischbacher of Siegfried and Roy in a cartoon called Father of the Pride, a short-lived CGI sitcom about their lions.
I remember that. Was that on like NBC or something like that?
I don't know.
Well, good job, sir, and credit to you for looking aghast and upset and horrified at all of the correct places.
Well, that's not where I know Julian Holloway from. I know him as the headmaster in James Bond Jr.
Oh.
And he was in the Where's Waldo Saturday morning cartoon as Waldo's nemesis, Oddlaw.
Of course. I can't believe that didn't come to me immediately.
These are things that just, I know that. I wouldn't have known him by name, but.
And it's so much better knowing those stuff than physics.
Right. Next, it's time for Scrooge and Cratchit to leave. We get the usual back and forth about taking Christmas Day off, but again, Gary Oldman's Cratchit is a lot more soft-spoken than I'm used to seeing my Cratchit. I don't expect him to be, now see here, Mr. Scrooge, but I don't know. He's like an Ewok, but quieter.
Yep. Comes out of his shell pretty quick, though, and can I just say, it's not plagiarizing the Muppet Christmas Carol.
I thought this too. Yes,
since Disney owns both, so it's not plagiarizing when Bob Cratchit does the Penguins' annual skating party. Penguins in this film, of course, played by dead-eyed street urchins.
Yes, but I'm glad I'm not the only one who immediately thought of Kermit with the Penguins.
He even does a similar kind of like surfing pose before he falls down at the end there. So I'm sure that Bob Zemeckis would call it an homage.
Absolutely.
And there are a few though that we will point out for him as we go through.
But first, we've got more Gary Oldman in store because he also plays Jacob Marley.
Yep, and I love this. I love this idea.
Yes,
I love dual casting. I'm a huge fan of it when it's done correctly, and I hate it when it's done poorly. But I'm going to go on a tangent here. But
do it.
Do you remember the live Peter Pan with Christopher Walken that they did on NBC?
What?
it was like during those times when they were doing like a new live musical every year, and they did a production of Peter Pan with Allison Williams, best known from Girls as Peter Pan, and Christopher Walken as Captain Hook.
How did I miss this?
Oh, I don't know, but you have to. This was broadcast live with Christopher Walken either having attended no rehearsals or dead drunk on the day.
Probably both.
Stumbling his way through a couple things. You have to look this up.
Oh,
but
my goodness.
My whole point of saying this was, in that production of Peter Pan, this is the Broadway version, of course, Captain Hook was obviously Christopher Walken, but the guy who played Smee played Mr. Darling.
Smee played Mr. Darling,
which is completely wrong, and I got really angry about this. I'm still a little bit angry at it, because if you're going to do this, and they did this in like that classic CBS version, where it was, I remember, because I can hear the announcer in my voice, which is Sybil Richard as Captain Hook. He played Mr. Darling as well, and it makes sense because Captain Hook is supposed to be an imagined hyper controlling version of their overbearing father.
Right. Well, yeah.
So that's all to say. This, where they have Oldman playing both Cratchit and Marley, his former and future, spoiler for a 200-year-old story, his past and future partner, makes all the sense in the world, and I love it because Marley here is like the corrupted version of Cratchit.
I didn't even put that together. Well done.
He even kind of has he has similar mutton chop hair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although that is also kind of the cloth and everything like that. But I love that they did this. It's one of my favorite things about this version, I think.
I'm glad you put that together because I didn't. I was just like, I love this Marley ghost.
Yeah.
We meet him as the ghostly knocker on Scrooge's door.
Yep. With a jump scare. Maybe the first one.
This is the best jump scare.
Yeah, there are several.
But this is the best one.
Yeah, this is the one. You get not only the one where he leans down, he's jiggling around for his keys, and he comes up, and all of a sudden the face is there. But he does a really good effect where and this happens a few times where it's like silent and the camera is on it for what seems like forever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's this big reaction. Of course, this one is him screaming at Scrooge. And unlike, is it Waldorf or is it Statler in Muppet Christmas Carol? He doesn't he doesn't have the knocker. He drops the knocker, which I love. I love that he screams at
Yeah.
Scrooge and the knocker comes down.
Right. It is Statler.
Thank you.
As the knocker, yeah.
I had
to think about him, just like, who is it? No, it's Statler's face. And that's the thing. We see it coming from a mile away because it's such a slow. Well, first off, Scrooge reaches for the ghost face knocker.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, like I would always reach for a radioactively green glowing face that used to belong to my partner, instead of basically turning around and running the other way. I'm sure I would like, let me give this a little poke. Let me see if I'm seeing what I'm seeing here. No, dead flesh. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But it still gets me every time. It's just we know the jump scare is coming. It's just a matter of what second it happens.
Yep.
A few of his teeth come flying out. It's perfect.
It's awesome.
And apparently Scrooge falling down his steps onto his back, that was Jim Carrey doing his own stunt.
Oh, well, good on him.
So, yeah.
I hope that didn't put him out of commission for too long, because that could have been quite painful.
Well, he did Mr. Popper's Penguins 2 years later. So.
Okay, so he's fine.
Yeah. Then he's upstairs, and as the bells ring, they start out really slowly and quietly, and then it gets louder and louder, and the camera shakes around Scrooge.
Yep.
And then the thumping footsteps followed by the dragging of the chains behind the door. That's another one that takes maybe a minute, which is a lot of screen time.
Can I go back real quick?
Oh, sure.
One thing that I really love about this is, and it kind of is a theme that kind of happens throughout the movie, where when you're in Scrooge's house, you'll notice there's a light and there's Scrooge, and there's like maybe one other piece of furnishing. In this case, when he goes inside, it's just, you only see his staircase. Yeah. Everything else around it is complete blackness.
Yep.
And there's going to be other parts later where it's like just his bed, and it's looking like he's living in this abyss, which of course he is. So that was another thing that I enjoyed. I really like how it's framed when he's in his house, where he's so small and everything is so stark that it's really impressive production design. But I'm with you on I love the scene with the bells. It is a little Muppet Christmas Carol had a bell. We're going to have 4 bells. And they even have like that camera pan out, so it's behind the bell looking down on Scrooge.
Yeah.
So we'll call it another homage, and I'm sure that other productions have done it as well, but I loved hearing the dead steps, hearing the chains, hearing those boxes coming up the steps as Scrooge kind of just cowers in his chair.
Yeah, and it feels like it takes forever. And to your point, this is a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. He's being stalked right now.
The way God and Charles Dickens intended.
Absolutely. Being a ghost story of Christmas.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then Marley himself, his eyes don't quite meet Scrooge's right away until they kind of slip into place finally.
Yep.
It's so unsettling, and I love it.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And those boxes, when they come through the door, they shoot right at you. Those kids out in that theater got a little bit of a squeal from that. Oh, yeah. And then this is like one of the first real toppers is when he takes off that claw, he unhinges his jaw, and he just starts spraying his breath everywhere onto Scrooge, all over the room and stuff. And it's just this nauseating, disgusting sight. And I love it.
Yeah, and he tries to make it funny, but like gross Beetlejuice funny.
Yep.
Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business.
You haven't shown this to your kids yet, have you?
So this is actually a good time to have this discussion, because as I was thinking about when I was going to do this rewatch, I said, no problem. We'll just do it one night when I can show the kids. And then I thought about my kids, and I didn't need them up scared every night for a week or so. Being worried about the demon horse or the ghost man with no jaw, or any of the other stuff that we're going to find here. Yeah. So I have not shown this to my kids yet.
I have not either. I showed them Beetlejuice. I mentioned Beetlejuice this year, and they did not take to it right away. Mm-hmm. They came around to the funny parts, but I don't think they're quite ready for this yet.
Yeah. Especially
when the Marleys they're used to are a couple of old Muppets and Goofy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, going from like, novice difficulty to expert right away. There's no kind of ramp up between Muppet Christmas Carol or Mickey's Christmas Carol in this.
No, not at all.
You're in the major leagues now, kids. Here's a big dead body.
Yeah. Speaking of Goofy, that's what I think of the Legion of Spirits out the window.
Oh, I was going to say, it's so cool that Marley was able to set up the Haunted Mansion dining room scene for Scrooge right outside of the window.
Oh, that's exactly what I have in my notes. It's like, it's the Haunted Mansion. It's the latter half of the Haunted Mansion.
Yep. You got some Pepper's Ghost in there. And, you have some guys flying around. I just can't believe they couldn't come up with like a ghost bride to come in and chop off Scrooge's head.
Right. Well, upon closer look at all these ghosts, they're all being tormented in their own ways. One guy's being beaten over the head by 2 giant coins.
Yep.
One's running endlessly after a bag of money on a stick. Mm-hmm. Very Dante's Inferno, but make it silly.
Yeah, a whole group of them are doing their best and futilely trying to apologize to a homeless person on the street. That was kind of interesting. I like that one.
Yeah,
but yeah, they're all in their torment. It's not just Marley, and he gives Scrooge a good look at what might be in his future.
Mm. And the silliness doesn't stop there, because soon the clock strikes 1, and here comes Jim Carrey with his head on fire as the candlelight ghost of Christmas Past.
But I am mortal and liable to fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand there, and you shall be upheld in more than this.
Or as I named him, Flicker, the psychotic ghost with an Irish accent? ?
Yeah. So
can we talk about it?
Yes, we can.
Was this a Carrey choice, or was this a Bob Zemeckis choice?
I think this was a Jim Carrey choice. He gave each of the ghosts that he plays a different accent.
Mm-hmm.
I think for Christmas Past, he was thinking about his own Irish past. So I think that's where the connection is there.
Okay.
A wispy Irish accent.
Coming out of like literally the face of Ace Ventura.
Yes! It's just Jim Carrey's face on a candle. Like,
yeah.
His other characters in this at least look differently enough that even though I can pick out the hints of Jim Carrey's face or eyes in them, it's still Scrooge. It's still Christmas Present when we get to it. Here, it's just his actual face on fire.
Yep. And he's almost like winking at the camera, like, you know, can you believe this? Like, I'm in a Christmas Carol. Look at me. But I'm also Irish, I guess. But yeah, he's got like just the right. For me at least, he has like just the right mix of, we'll call it menace, we'll call it nostalgia, and maybe even a little bit of mischief in his voice as he's taking Scrooge through this, because. Let's be honest. The Ghost of Christmas Past loves this job, right? Oh yeah. They must like love showing these suckers like, oh, look how good you had it and you threw it away. And I think that this one in particular shows that pretty well.
Absolutely. We get more fast flying here as we head into the past. This is the point where I remember, oh yeah, this was released in 3D. This is the show off scene.
Yes. These bunch of scenes are actually bookended by show-off scenes. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's a little show-off scene in between each of the ghosts' appearances where, you know, if not for these, this movie might have been like a tight, you know, hour and 40. Instead we get 2 hours.
Yeah, but
we probably could have saved the Walt Disney mocap studios by
yeah, but. I enjoyed it in the theater most of the time, but watching it now on my Mac, full disclosure, because I'm typing notes as I watch it. But even if I'd put it on in my living room, I'd probably have had the same reaction where, oh, this was for a 3D audience and not me at home.
Oh, yeah. And this is nothing compared to later on when you're basically watching like, why is this happening?
Yeah. So we see Scrooge as a young boy now. And of course, Jim Carrey does the motion capture for this. But I couldn't find a credit for the voice. It wasn't on IMDb and it wasn't on Wikipedia.
We'll just say it was Jim Carrey's young friend.
There we go. But the weird thing I found on Disney.com's movie site, they have a list of credits, but someone messed up and was apparently updating this and the Muppet Christmas Carol at the same time, because Gary Oldman is credited for playing Kermit the Frog and Robin the Frog. Nobody tell Disney. I kind of want it to stay that way.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. You know, I mean, it's nothing we don't know about Gary Oldman, who is, as we know, a master thespian. If you tell me that he played Kermit the Frog and Robin, I would believe you.
I want that now.
I do as well.
Couldn't find a credit for the voice of the youngest Scrooge here, or as a teenager.
I want Gary Oldman as Kermit on the next season of Muppets Now.
Yes.
Disney, make it happen.
Make it happen. Oh man. But then in runs for the first time on this podcast, Scrooge's younger sister, Fan.
Yes.
Dear brother, I've come to bring you home.
Home, little Fan?
Yes, home.
We'll get back to the actress motion capturing Fan in a bit, but Fan, you don't see her make the cut too often.
No, not in Muppets.
Nope.
You know, the only other time that I've encountered Fan is, well, besides reading the book, you must be maybe familiar with the Dickens Village at Macy's in Philadelphia that they do every year.
Oh, yeah.
Are you?
Yep.
So they have a whole, for anyone who's not familiar, they have a walkthrough basically of A Christmas Carol. It's like life-size diorama, but really, really well done. And if you can't find this movie on Disney or you don't have Disney Plus to traumatize your kids, definitely bring them to Macy's in Philadelphia. Once quarantine's over, please be safe.
Yes.
But they have a whole diorama of Fan, and they talk about her and the kind of, almost as it's portrayed in this movie, like word for word, the really kind of like Ghost of Christmas Past really sticking in the knife and twisting it and being like, she died, right? And she had a kid? and that's nephew Fred.
Yeah. She's Fred's mom naturally.
But like literally, they just both in this and that little plaque that they have at Dickens Village, it's like she would die a woman and having only given birth to one child, Scrooge's nephew Fred. It's like, all right, wow, well, pouring out for Fan, I guess.
Yep, that's Fan. We only see her as a child in a memory, and only briefly before Scrooge is whisked off to his young apprenticeship at Fezziwig's. And Fezziwig is very obviously the late great Bob Hoskins.
Yo-ho! Ebenezer, come on!
My man. Speaking of Smee, the best Smee possibly ever.
Absolutely. 100%. That's my favorite Bob Hoskins role.
And I like Fezziwigs in this because they've taken all the gravity out of the building, like literally. It is a gravity-free zone. They basically made it into like a bounce U, and both our friend Fezziwig and his wife get in on the action.
It's like doing the kind of running jump thing.
Yep, running jumping,
which was a Luigi jump. So they attributed it to the wrong Mario brother.
Yes, that's true. This I feel like it goes nicely in the Zemeckis. We'll call it the Zemeckis Dead Eye series. Hopefully, he makes one more Christmas movie where this is kind of like bookended with like the hot chocolate scene where you have these waiters who are doing incredibly impossible things in a train, jumping up on top of tables, making hot chocolate machines disappear and stuff like that. Where you have probably a 70-year-old Fezziwig doing triple jumps in the sky.
So in Bob Hoskins' filmography, this is a year after the movie Doomsday and 2 years before a British TV miniseries called Neverland, where he got to be Smee again. Did you know about this?
I had no idea.
Neither did I.
Now I definitely want to seek it out.
Yeah, so it's apparently Keira Knightley's Tinkerbell. It's a prequel, so you have Rhys Ifans as a young Jimmy Hook, as he's credited.
Oh, goodness.
So I don't know.
How many reboots is Peter Pan going to get?
All of them.
Until they get it right, I guess.
Right. Well, they got it right.
Yes. Did you notice that he throws in a little yo-ho here? Just as if, as like, yes, yes, I'm him. Yes, I am Smee. Here, I'll just give you what you want and leave me alone.
Thank you.
Loved it. I loved Bob Hoskins in this.
Absolutely.
More of him, if it was even possible. But unfortunately, it's not.
Well, a little bit later, but only a little bit later.
Yep.
I kind of wish he got to play Fezziwig in a live action version, though.
Yeah, that would be great. He's a good Fezziwig.
He really, really is.
He's got that kind of jolly sort about him.
Yeah.
I forget the line that Michael Caine has about Fezziwig, where he's as what was it? As
because it's Fozziwig.
Yeah. Something about as stern and as unyielding as a blueberry or something. I can't remember what it was.
As hard and as ruthless as a rose petal.
I'll also shout out Dick Wilkins here, also played by Cary Elwes, if only to quickly mention that he was the stand-in for Scrooge when the ghosts are speaking to him and vice versa. So it sounds like, if I'm reading that correctly, Jim Carrey and Cary Elwes had to film each scene where Scrooge is with either Christmas Past or Christmas Present twice, and they switched spots each time.
That's interesting.
That's impressive.
That's like waiting. What is it? Waiting for Godot? No, there's a famous show where the actors switch roles nightly. And the last version that they did was Philip Seymour Hoffman and not Charles Nelson Riley. He's long dead.
John C. Riley?
Yes, John C. Riley. Thank you. You know who I was. But yeah, I like that. I like that because that helps to kind of give a new perspective on the role for each of them.
Yeah. And now
I really want to see a Cary Elwes Jim Carrey movie. Maybe a buddy cop comedy. I don't know.
Well, they were in Liar Liar together. But...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You just blew my mind.
This is a reunion for them.
So that's great. And speaking of reunions, Cary Elwes and someone else.
Yes, now we get back to the actress I mentioned as Fan earlier. She's also Belle, whom we meet at Fezziwig's Christmas party.
Yep.
But it's the Princess Bride herself. It's Robin Wright.
You fear the world too much, Ebenezer. You've changed.
Changed? Perhaps grown wiser. But I have not changed toward you.
Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so.
Well, Robin Wright pen here, excuse me, but she's back to Robin Wright now.
I wasn't sure if I should have corrected you there. Yes, at the time, I think that it was Robin Wright pen.
Correct.
But she has now rightfully relinquished that pen, and she's gone back to being the Queen, Robin Wright, as we all know her.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't know her as Fan, though, but you definitely recognize her here as Belle.
Yep, she's another one of those. No makeup needed, no pink balls needed. Just go out there and set and say your lines.
And in Robin Wright's filmography, this is a year after What Just Happened and a year before The Conspirator, in which she was charged as a co-conspirator in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
and 2 years before Moneyball.
Yeah, and eventually House of Cards, which I would say has possibly overtaken Princess Bride. If what you're telling me about Cary Elwes is true, then it seems that Robin Wright might be more well known for House of Cards than Princess Bride, which is probably not correct, but
no,
probably still accurate.
So I forget what was first.
So I'm giving her upgrade status. This is an uptick for her. She's on her way up after this movie.
Yeah, Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, how could I forget? Yeah, she's and and Carrie, of course, too. But they all did a great job with the virtual reading for the for the Wisconsin Dems. I love that production. That was an amazing thing that they did. I can't believe they pulled that together.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thanks, Wisconsin.
Yeah, here we go. I will say this young man version of Ebenezer Scrooge looks a lot like regular long-haired Jim Carrey than the rest, but with the largest, pointiest chin.
Oh, that chin.
Like his profile would look like a face of a crescent moon in that vintage Halloween decoration. That's what I thought of.
Yep, and I love that you put him on the cover of this season's Advent House, and you could tell immediately who it is in that bottom left corner. No, no squinting necessary like you might have for others. You pointed that out immediately. that chin, it's definitely the most distinguishing part of his design.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
It's the Clauses, everybody. Have a chicken McNugget. Don't worry, it's under 63 calories. Rudy, be a dear and open another 20-pack.
McDonald's Chicken McNuggets 20-pack makes every holiday party happy and fun.
Aren't we having fun? Mingle, mingle. Tiny Tim, tiny as ever. Take two.
It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
Time for McDonald's gift certificates, 50 cents each, or a book of 10 for $5.
We do not get to see older, comely matron Belle, but the whole of Christmas Past seems kind of rushed, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could have lingered a little longer in each scene. Did you get that impression?
Would you say, Mike, that you were kind of missing maybe a song?
Yeah. That's it. Can Robin Wright sing? I don't know if I've ever heard her sing.
Let's get her the sheet music for
There we go.
The Way We Were.
When Love Is Gone?
When Love Is Gone, yes. The Way We Were. That's Barbra Streisand.
Let's do both.
Robin, can you sing? Can you give me an F flat? All right, you're good. All right, Here you go. Here's the song. You've seen this, right? No, I agree with you. I always think that, in terms of time for the different ghost appearances, so obviously, and you might have discussed this on this program before. There are like 5 phases of this story, right? There's kind of like the pre-ghost, there's Ghost 1, Ghost 2, Ghost 3, and then there's, Christmas.
Yeah.
I've always found that they spend the most time in maybe past and present, and the future is always kind of a little bit rushed. Not the case in this one, and probably a very conscious choice, given what Robert Zemeckis wanted this movie to be. He just wanted to get to the torture, I think. He's like, all right, so get rid of the young kid, get rid of the fiance. I want her gone so that I can turn him into a mouse and chase him with a ghost chariot.
Yeah, Scrooge just begs the ghost to get him out of here. Christmas Past does a thing Dickens described in the story, but we never get to properly see until now. His face shifts between young and old. And in this particular version, Robert Zemeckis decided to make his face shift between every key character we have just seen in Christmas Past until Scrooge has enough and snuffs out the ghost with his own captor.
Yep, or tries to, at least.
Only to launch into space!
Yeah, it's time to wake up the audience, man.
No reason.
You know, they were all kind of falling asleep during some of that, boring past stuff. So wake up, losers, because we're going to the moon.
Yeah, let's just shoot Scrooge into the sky past the moon, E.T. style.
Yep,
because we can.
Absolutely. Maybe even another Peter Pan connection. That thing where they kind of launch off of Big Ben and they do that dive past the moon. That looked pretty similar too.
Second star to the right and straight on till 2:00.
Straight on till Scrooge's bed floor.
Yeah. Plummets back to Earth, and we can see the skin of his face flapping in the wind thing that happens anytime any character falls from a great height at a great velocity.
Yep, and Bob Zemeckis being very kind not to show us some of the flapping skirts of his nightgown, too.
Yes, thank you, Bob.
Thanks for the restraint, Bob. We appreciate that.
He's back on the floor of his bedroom just in time for Christmas present to arrive, and it's the classic younger Father Christmas red-bearded, green-coated Christmas present you see most of the time.
Come in and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present.
And Jim Carrey's boisterous laugh is this close to swerving into Ace Ventura's little
That is true. And he has an Oculus.
Yes, he does.
He has his magical, mystical Oculus view that he imparts onto Scrooge just by a touch of his robe.
Yeah, it's more 3D magic thing where that's what's really happening here. But you and me, a couple of theme park enthusiasts, first I thought of the Tower of Terror, how it kind of bounces up and then back down onto the first floor of his house.
Yep.
And then it turns into Soarin'.
Yeah, I was going to say in 3D, in IMAX, with sound up, it's possible like you're almost at Flight of Passage territory.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, certain parts of this movie. But yeah, this is just kind of a show off thing about, hey, let's see what we can do. I do like his line about kind of giving it a heavenly perspective.
Yes,
which is kind of cool. We're seeing everything from above until he's able to get right down in there for some things that the spirit really kind of rubs his face in.
Oh yeah, it's a weird choice though to just decide I'm going to take this entire parlor room, the second story of your house, and we're going to fly through London with it.
Yeah, like at first you don't really know what's going on. Like, okay, are we going to shrink him, or is he shrinking down? Are we taking off this level? Are we just taking like this one floor of the house? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you trying to do? Show me. But then obviously when the floor becomes transparent, when he tugs on the robe and all of like the Christmas paraphernalia comes down and kind of cleanses the floor, that's when everything is kind of revealed. Yeah. I don't mind a little bit of it feels like Christmas, just kind of walking through the streets and being down there with the people. But this is an interesting choice too.
Yeah. So Jim Carrey did an Irish accent for Christmas Past. For Christmas Present, he said he used a Yorkshire accent from Sheffield specifically because he felt this ghost was connected to the common man.
I see. Do we think that Jim Carrey has ever been to Sheffield?
Maybe. Yeah, he probably has.
Do you think he Googled fun British accents the first day of that, and he just kind of showed up and said, "Here's what we're doing, Bob. Strap in."
Well, I mean, if he's trying to get that common man spirit that Christmas Present is supposed to have, then this is the right way to go with that. But
yep, no, I agree.
It almost sounded a bit Scottish. Like for a second, I'm like, is he trying to do Bill Nighy? But no, it's Yorkshire, which is not how Bill Nighy talks. But it was close. Yeah. I don't know.
Yep. I enjoy this spirit, I think, the most in this movie.
Yeah.
Of this movie, this is my favorite of the three spirits.
Agreed.
I would say up until a point, which we will get to. Again, I'm saying that a lot, but Bob Zemeckis,
it's a long.
He absolutely.
We finally stop at the Cratchit residence as Scrooge is still looking at the scene from above his own flying parlor room. And I'm going to quickly go through some more voices here.
Okay.
Because it's a big family. There's Mrs. Cratchit, played by Leslie Manville.
Founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I'd hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
Who is best known in the UK for the films All or Nothing and Another Year. I know her from the movie Maleficent, where she is the good fairy Flittle.
Oh.
They gave the fairies different names. She was the one who wore blue, but she was more of the fauna equivalent.
Okay. I've never seen Maleficent.
Okay.
But I'm sure that I would have recognized her if I did.
Yep.
Right, where's our Martha?
Not coming.
Not coming. Oh, not coming upon Christmas Day.
We got you, Father! I couldn't bear to see you in a state of disappointment, dearest Father, if only for a giggle.
Her oldest daughter, Martha, is Faye Masterson, who plays Christian Grey's housekeeper in the 50 Shades movies, which I have not seen, so I'm taking its word for it. Belinda Cratchit is Molly Quinn, who played Nathan Fillion's daughter in Castle.
Here's his mother, here's Mother! Hurrah! Wait till you see our goose. 'Tis a wonderful one.
Peter, off with you to the baker's and collect the bird. And take the children with you. And pray, no dallying.
And Peter Cratchit is Daryl Sabara. It's Junie from Spy Kids.
Oh.
And the voice of the hero boy from the Polar Express.
Oh.
And here, having gone through puberty now, but it was Tom Hanks doing the motion capture in that one, but it's Daryl Sabara's voice.
Okay.
And on that note, we meet Tiny Tim, who's got the same deal. It's Gary Oldman doing the motion capture, but the voice belongs to Ryan Okoa.
God bless us. Everyone.
The main antagonist of the Disney XD series Pair of Kings.
Really?
About twin brothers who learn they're co-heirs to an island kingdom. This is like their nemesis or something who's trying to take over the kingdom.
You ever hear about a show and you're shocked that with 3 kids you have never heard of it?
Yeah.
I guess maybe 10 years ago they would have been, but we'll have to check that out.
Okay.
Now let's just talk about Tiny Tim, right?
Sure.
Because Tiny Tim is the linchpin. Nothing's really happening with Scrooge until he sees Tiny Tim, right? Mm-hmm. Like if he gets back from the past, maybe he has like a couple days where he's a little bit mopey. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do my best. I'll be better and stuff like that. Right. Tiny Tim is kind of his inspiration to do everything. I would say even more than probably his own death eventually.
Yeah.
So therefore, Tiny Tim, you have to fall in love with Tiny Tim the second you see him. You want to protect him. You want him to live. Obviously, this Tiny Tim, I'm sorry to say, did not do it for me. Maybe it's kind of the dead eyes stuff. Maybe it was because the whole time I'm seeing Robin in my head coughing and stuff like that. But I found this Tiny Tim to be a little bit lacking. I liked it. I liked him at the end, but
I agree. He's an afterthought.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. But even still, this is one of my favorite scenes in any production of this.
Yeah.
Where, and it's easily the most tear-jerking where Bob is talking about how Tiny Tim was at church and he wants everyone to see him at church because they can know that a cripple and I'm not calling him a cripple. This is what he said. Can walk and stuff like that. It gets you every single time. More so maybe when Kermit's saying it. I'm not, who am I to say? We're big Muppet fans.
Sad Kermit's a big deal because he literally has a built-in smile.
Yeah.
So when you can make Kermit sad, that's huge.
Yep. Yeah, but I think that they could have done a little bit more with Tiny Tim in this movie.
I do too. He was very much an afterthought. I'm used to like Robin coughing, and this one doesn't seem quite as frail as that.
This young boy isn't nearly sick enough.
No.
I want him sicker. I want him on. Studio head Mike says, give this boy typhoid.
Okay. But this Scrooge, Jim Carrey Scrooge, still is feeling it like every other Scrooge does. Another thing I liked about this version is when Christmas Present turns Scrooge's own words on him. Where if he's to die, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Yep.
He's actually taking on Scrooge's voice but not replacing his own, but rather over top of his own. So that it's got that creepy 2 voices at once effect.
If he is to die, he had better do it. And decrease the surplus population.
Yeah, and he gives him his own face right back at him too.
Yeah, even his face morphs in this Scrooge here.
To hammer it home. That was really well done. You're right.
Yeah. But then we're whisked off quickly to his nephew Fred's place. And
yes.
We'll quickly point out here the voice of Fred's wife is Robert Zemeckis' wife, Leslie.
I have no patience with him, Fred.
Oh, I have. I'm sorry for him.
Good job, Leslie.
Yeah.
And they're playing that classic game that we always do, that everyone does at the holidays, really, where we all talk trash on the relatives that didn't show up.
Good old yes and no, which we'll come back to. Then we're back into horror movie mode as we find ourselves close to midnight inside a giant dark clock tower. Heard the director likes those.
Oh, well done. Well done. I didn't even notice.
Yep.
I didn't even put it together. And this is kind of the start of like 10 minutes of, I would say, like abject horror. Is that fair to say?
Well, we get a scene usually cut from a lot of the more popular adaptations because it's written as abject horror.
Yep.
It's the ragged children, ignorance, and want.
Mm-hmm. Who emerge from the robes of the spirit, emaciated, probably a little bit withdrawn from something, crazy, half crazed, poor, and they quickly morph into some pretty legitimate nightmares.
Yeah, so as the very loud bell of this clock striking midnight starts to ring, the ghost of Christmas Present falls down rigid and colorless, but still laughing.
Mm-hmm. It's a kid's movie, guys.
Yep. And ignorance and want immediately grow into adults themselves, throwing Scrooge's words back at him this time.
Have they no refuge? No resource?
Are there no prisons?
Are there no workhouses?
Punctuated nicely by, of course, the I guess ignorance being thrown into prison and want morphing into like a legit prostitute. Can we say?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay.
Is this Disney's first prostitute? Do you think?
No.
No. It's definitely the most overt, I would say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I can take a hint, gotta face the facts. You're my only friend, Abu.
Oh, it's that Aladdin's hit the bottom.
But yeah, things quickly take a turn from the joys of Christmas Present.
Yes, but real quickly, ignorance as a child is Ryan Okoa again, who is Tiny Tim's voice. The adult who says, "Are there no prisons?" is Carrie Hoyt, who's Jim Carrey's stand-in for a lot of movies.
Okay.
Including Liar Liar, Man on the Moon, The Majestic, Bruce Almighty, and a series of unfortunate events. So that was neat.
Yep.
Want as a child is Sammy Hanratty, who played young con artist Holly in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Want as an adult is Julian Renee, who I know from the Nickelodeon show Roundhouse.
Wow.
Did you watch Roundhouse?
I haven't thought about Roundhouse in over a decade, I'll say.
She had short blonde hair and was their go-to female announcer or grandma on that show.
Okay.
That's the thing that stood out to me in her IMDb. She's had a long, illustrious career, but nope, Roundhouse, loved Roundhouse.
Great job by both of them.
Absolutely.
Really, permanently scarring. Good animation. They're feral. They're clawing at Scrooge. Yeah. He's doing everything he can to get away from them. Meanwhile, you got the ghost of Christmas Present over there literally dying on screen.
Yes, still laughing as he's reduced to a skeleton with blue eyes.
Yep.
Looks like The Mask, but white and creepy.
Mm-hmm. Merry Christmas, kids.
Yeah. And it's time for Christmas yet to come. And this ghost appears as Scrooge's shadow in the moonlight. And another great jump scare here.
The night is waning fast. It's precious time to me. Lead on, spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that seems to be set up almost interminably. Like it feels like 5 minutes when you're just looking at the skeleton slowly opening its arms, giving you the full profile. Like you're like, what is going? Are there going to be eyes? Is it going to take shape? Is it going to? And then all of a sudden it comes right at you.
Well,
I'm sure.
Even
wonderful.
Scrooge, they added the line. It's just like ready when you are, and then boom.
Yeah. We doing this, or can I? Am I done? Can we go?
Lunges at him, knocking him through the floor, down a large flight of stairs, and stopping at the feet of his nameless big business colleagues, talking about someone who's died before fading into night again.
And I love this.
Oh.
I love this in every single version where Scrooge is doing everything he can to convince himself that it's not him. Obviously the businessmen are talking pretty obviously about him. It gets even more obvious in the next scene. But even after all of these scenes, when he's, where he's going to end up, he's still saying, "Oh, this guy could be like me," is what you're saying, right? Like, like very optimistic. Our friend Scrooge is.
But we take the very scenic route to that.
Yes,
because Christmas Future again appears as his shadow, and here he starts pointing to another long shadow of a hearse carriage drawn by two large shadowy horses. Who pop into 3D and stare at Scrooge with angry red eyes. And here's our super weird chase scene.
This scene works unbelievably well. Just on its own merits of being a creepy, threatening, very cool scene, I would say. I don't know if it belongs in this movie or any kind of production of A Christmas Carol, but it's really well done. I wish I had seen it in 3D. I watched, like you, I watched this on my computer. I had a pretty big monitor, and it is like the first time you see it, it is horrifying.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that in 3D it was even better.
It was, but at the same time, you're right about. That's what's missing from A Christmas Carol, a chase scene.
Yes.
What is this?
And I clocked this, Mike. And this scene is over 6 minutes long.
Oh my goodness!
And it features, numerous near death experiences.
Yep.
Numerous close calls. It features our protagonist licking the inside of a sewer and making a pudding joke.
Yeah.
You won't get me in here. Christmas pudding, no doubt.
Which is kind of cool, I guess. And then we're right back to the chase. And what is the Ghost of Christmas Future's deal here? Like, what is he doing? Is he getting him to the next place? Is he just trying to soften him up a little? Is he having his own fun? Like, what are you doing?
I guess so. It's just like, look, I'm not flying you around. You already got your scenic tour. I'm going to chase you down alleys and through sewer pipes to the tune of a panic-laced take on God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen.
Yes.
Zombies popping out and just screaming or laughing at him.
Yep. Big old barrels almost crushing him to death and eventually soaking him in beer. Now imagine how much better this all could have been if the entire time you have Alan Rickman like intoning these things like, God rest your soul, Ebenezer Scrooge, and all this stuff. I don't know. I didn't write the script. I didn't have time. Yeah.
I can't do Alan Rickman.
10 points from Gryffindor, Scrooge. I don't know.
He eventually falls down a sewer pipe, so we get a water slide scene.
Yes.
Tiny Scrooge then grinds on an icicle on a rooftop, Tony Hawk Pro Skater style.
Yep. Was this where he caused sparks, or was that later?
I think that was part of it, and also the stagecoach itself just kind of sparks every once in a while.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, it's the coachman cracking his whip, and it turns into like fireworks.
Oh, of course. Okay. Because I got confused because I saw sparks and I'm like, are his feet on fire? Are we doing like a Wile E. Coyote kind of thing? Like, have things gotten that bad for poor Scrooge? Like,
no, it's the whip cracking. It's just like, ooh, that's pretty.
Well, in that case, that's a great effect and good job.
Finally falls into a bag of his own bed curtains brought into Old Joe's shop by Scrooge's charwoman, Mrs. Dilber.
Merry Christmas, Joe.
And Happy New Year, to be sure.
Now, Old Joe is Bob Hoskins again.
Yes.
And Mrs. Dilber, who was a character in the original story, is, I'm going to butcher this first name. She's Irish. Fionnuala Flanagan.
Okay.
Whom I know from the Nicole Kidman movie The Others as one of the maids.
Mm-hmm. She does a great job. I love her in this. Yes. She does the perfect like housekeeper. Would you call it a cockney? I don't know. I'm not British.
I think so.
Yeah. And again, Scrooge, seeing who it is, saying, oh, like, probably in his mind being like, oh, I didn't know that she serviced two elderly misers. Like this is probably like that other guy's bed sheets and, dress, nightgown and stuff like that. Doing the rationalization in his head. Like, this is probably fine for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got it, Spirit. Lesson learned. No need to see anything else.
And at one point, we think old Joe can spot Scrooge, but he's actually attempting to hit a rat nearby him with his fire poker. So more chasing.
Yeah, and a missed opportunity for a jump scare here. Let's be honest. I mean, come on, Bob. You could have had the rat like jump out from behind Scrooge or something.
Oh, that would have been good.
Yep. POV from the rat.
Yep.
Maybe. Yep. This is why we should run the Disney mocap. Open it back up. Open it back up, Peter. Peter Chapek. You have the money. A lot less of it now, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, we don't go check on the Cratchits from here right away like we so often do.
Mm-hmm.
First, we briefly see Scrooge's own shrouded corpse on his bed.
Mm-hmm.
Then, begging to see someone moved by the man's death, we peek in quickly on a family in debt to him, relieved to have more time now to pay it off.
Yep.
Then we're brought to an unusually quiet Cratchit house.
Yep. Pointing all the way. I love the point. The shadow, it goes everywhere.
Yeah. Off the angle of the wall.
Yep. To exactly what he wants Scrooge to see. Just like the Ghost of Christmas Present kind of turned his face back when he wanted to look away. He's not.
It's a lot of comic relief of that. We're just like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And here we are in a scene that we've seen before. I actually think that this version might be better than Muppets, and I'll tell you why. It's very similar, but it's got something at the end that the Muppets doesn't have, which is this entire scene. Bob Cratchit is, he's the dad that he has to be in that moment. He has to be strong. Yeah. He has to be supportive. But then when he walks up those stairs and he doesn't realize that Scrooge can see him, and he's at the top of the stairs, and he looks at Scrooge and he like breaks down completely. That was an amazing moment.
Yeah, and comes in like.
Mm-hmm.
Says his bit in tears, starts walking up the stairs, looks right at him, but of course he doesn't see Scrooge, but Scrooge is like beside himself. The Tiny Tim's gone, and
he's probably gone.
And I promised him I would walk there every Sunday.
The whole house, the whole atmosphere of the house was more unsettling than I'm used to, just because it's so quiet and every voice is echoing off the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And this just adds to it. It was just like the red eyes of Bob Cratchit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes up.
Mm-hmm. And then we're at the big show.
Yeah, that 5 seconds of Bob stopping on the staircase and looking at nothing, despite Scrooge being right in front of him, was more powerful to me than Scrooge just standing in a corner calling out to him. So I do like this.
Yep.
But you're right. Then we can't just teleport to the graveyard. We have to fall there from a great snowy height.
Mm-hmm. Because this is 3D, kids, and you paid for a ride.
But the storm here in the graveyard is too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Music gets loud and there's thunder, and it's not quite as bone-chilling as the usual silence of suspense we get here. It's all just like crank everything up to 11.
Spirit, hear me! I'm not the man I was! Why show me this if I've lost all hope?
Mm-hmm. Including, like, what other productions have flames under the coffin?
Maybe just Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Just Mickey's, right? I'm a sucker for that. I like when they show Scrooge that he's going to hell.
Yeah, it's not quite. Well, yeah, I think it's clearly a callback to Mickey's Christmas Carol. Mickey's Christmas Carol is scarier because, like, it's got the smoke and the fire coming up. This is just red glow under a coffin.
Mm-hmm. It's not as scary as Scrooged either, where he's like literally being fed into the flames. I would say, but yeah, the flames I think are a nice touch. Some other people might think that they're a little bit much.
No, I think it works. I think they should have done more.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But the storm, like, everything's just too loud, and I don't like it.
The storm is punctuating each of Scrooge's kind of phrases. It's taking a little bit more off of the tombstone, where we know like what this tombstone is going to say.
It shows his date of birth.
Yeah,
which we don't use. It's February 7th. That's Charles Dickens' birthday. So
okay,
the year doesn't line up because Dickens wasn't that old. But neat Easter egg.
What was the year? How old are they saying Scrooge was when he died? Do you have that?
60s.
Okay.
Late 60s or mid 60s.
So okay, understood.
And then Scrooge kind of sinks into his grave, almost like a perfectly coffin-shaped sinkhole, and that's where we get the red glowing hellhole grave down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he falls slow motion into the coffin. And gets caught in his own bed curtain, and we're back. It's Christmas morning,
and everything is fine.
Yep.
And now he's the mask. Now we get some Ace Ventura, some Ace Ventura peppered in. I can't believe he doesn't say "alrighty" then at some point.
I'm surprised. Yeah,
good restraint, Jim. Proud of you.
I don't know what to do. I'm light as a feather, merry as a schoolboy. I've heard that laugh before.
That's Ryan Okoa's back again as the kid at the end. The one as big as me.
Today? What Christmas Day?
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can.
And lest we forget, this is a Robert Zemeckis movie. We get Scrooge grabbing the back of the carriage and hitching a ride Marty McFly style.
That's the power of love.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah, but it's in the snow, so he's just kind of skidding.
But of course, after he probably sexually harasses his housekeeper and sets himself up for a pretty devastating lawsuit in the days to come after Christmas.
Oh, Mrs. Dilber.
Yep, she's a good person.
Yeah,
but good catch on the skateboarding. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Back to the Future Day, Scrooge.
Yay. Shows up at his nephew's house right as they're playing the yes and no game. And I'm ready for him to Jim Carrey it up here and jump in and surprise them. But he actually walks in very humbly at the right moment and let Fred be the one to happily welcome him. I'm glad they did it this way.
I am too. And it's always surprising to see this version when you remember that he has the dinner there. Because we're all memory holed into thinking he'll go to Cratchit's after. But that's not the case. He only sent the turkey. And you have to wonder what's happening at the Cratchit's house when this, 50-pound turkey shows up on their doorstep.
Yeah, we don't even see that. We cut right to the following morning, and Bob runs in 16 minutes late. And it ends much like the original story does, with Scrooge faking him out and then giving him the raise before he sends him out to buy some more coal. And then we see Scrooge Jim carrying it up through the window, dancing Happy New Year.
Really missing Miss Piggy's line in this scene where she's about to raise him right off of the I kind of wish that Mrs. Cratchit was there to deliver that.
Add Miss Piggy to every movie.
Yep. But then we have Gary Oldman breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, wraps it up outside as Tiny Tim on Scrooge's shoulder takes us out with the old God bless us everyone.
And Scrooge was better than his word. He did all that he said he would, and more. And to our Tiny Tim, who got well, Scrooge was like a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city ever knew. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
And we fade back into the drawing in the book on the mantle, and that's it.
Yep. We get a nice maybe what Zemeckis thought would be a competitor to the Josh Groban song from Polar Express. Not nearly the legs that song has had by Andrea Bocelli. Sorry, Andrea. But yeah, then we're home and we finished another rendition of A Christmas Carol.
We did. Any final thoughts on Disney's A Christmas Carol?
I would just say to make sure that you have a good, if you're taking your kids, to have a good psychiatrist lined up afterwards, and prepare to not have them sleep in their own beds for at least 2 weeks after, I would say.
Yep.
3 weeks for 3D.
But as an adult, I enjoyed this. Like, it's not going to be my favorite anytime soon, but if I want to feel like, if I want a scary ghost story like Andy Williams sings about, this is where you go.
Absolutely. And I watch Muppets every Christmas Day with my family. But this is definitely one for maybe a couple days before get a little creeped out, have a little uplifting at the end. It's just what you want the Christmas Carol to be.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, if people want to swipe the coins holding shut the eyes of your corruptible mortal state, can they find you anywhere on the internet?
Not really. As I said, I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything like that. I just have opinions about Robert Zemeckis Christmas movies.
Well, I'm glad you shared them with me here. Thank you.
If you're looking to plan a trip to Disney World, I can definitely do that for you at Facebook Matt's Dream Destinations.
I will link to that in the show notes.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for making my first podcast experience so enjoyable.
I am honored, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And anytime you need me to come back and get mad at Bob Zemeckis for you, I am here.
Sure. Well, I will definitely put that link in the show notes, which you can find at adventcalendar.house. There you can also find where to find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll see y'all again in a couple of days, but for now, for Matt Weiland, from the bottom of my stoop after being frightened to death by my door knocker, this is Mike Westfall saying, careful of the icy patch. And God bless us, everyone.
And now, these messages.
It's Christmas!
Hello, this is Adam from Merry Britsmas. I am a Christmas fanatic from the UK who thinks that the world needs to know more about the traditions, telly, and music that helps make a British Christmas really festive. I look at everything from mince pies to Boxing Day to Wham to Slade to the Royal Family to Doctor Who. If you want to find out more about a British Christmas, or you are British and want a hit of nostalgia, check me out at Merry Britsmas.
And happy blooming Christmas to you and all.
I'm Chris.
I'm Brian.
I'm John.
Together, we host the Yuletide TV podcast, where we're on the quest to find the best Christmas TV episodes ever made.
On our podcast, we'll recap the episode, share a little bit of our own holiday memories, and go down a few non-Christmas tangents.
And at the end, we'll let you know if what we watched is a Christmas classic, a lump of coal, or something in between.
Best of all, you can watch along with us, because we only cover episodes that are readily available on major streaming services.
We like our eggnog spiked, so get ready for some hot takes served with a healthy dose of Christmas cheer.
Tune in for our Season 2 lineup reveal on November 2nd, and then look for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from November 23rd, which is legally Thanksgiving, until Christmas Day.
Our podcast may not be for everyone, but no matter what, we're glad you're alive.
Next time on the Advent Calendar House.
I'm not sure if I'll have to cancel, but it doesn't look good. Maybe somehow we'll make do with Olive the other reindeer.
Did Santa just say Olive, the other reindeer?
He said maybe we'll make do with all of the other reindeer.
No, he said Olive, the other reindeer. I heard him. Santa needs you to be the replacement reindeer.